At 12 o'clock today is legal tampering. That's when teams can legally start giving offer sheets to players, and then by Wednesday, it all becomes finalized. The new league year starts. But here, we know this. It's going to probably be one of those weeks for the Eagles where they likely lose more players than they add. It's just that kind of year for them. And we're preparing ourselves for potentially Milton Williams walking out the door and Josh Sweat walking out the door. We'll see about Mekhi Becton. But Hugh, as the last couple weeks have gone on, it feels like one Eagle that was under the radar as a potential defection is now squarely on the radar. Friday afternoon, Elliott Shore-Parks, who's been hinting for a while, keep an eye on this Dallas Goedert thing. Well, he took that to another level while on with the afternoon show. Here's Elliott on Friday with the afternoon show about Dallas Goedert's future here with the Eagles.
Dallas Goedert is available via trade. I'm not saying they're outright shopping him, but he is available to teams around the league if they want to trade for him. And so I don't know if that'll happen before Wednesday, but I would not shock me if he is released. It would not shock me if he is traded. Released.
All right, so that added some extra to this here. It feels like the Dallas Goedert thing is coming to a head. And then yesterday, Josina Anderson said the Eagles are hoping to get about a mid-round pick for Dallas Goedert. We're talking like fourth, fifth-round pick, hoping for a fourth-round pick for Dallas Goedert. Hugh, where are you at on this? Because I'll tell you what, as we start off today, I have prepared myself for the Eagles losing some good players. Right? Milton's probably going to sign somewhere else. Josh Sweat's probably going to sign somewhere else. Maybe Mekhi Becton will sign somewhere else. But if all I'm getting back for Dallas Goedert is a fourth or a fifth-round pick, I'm not cool with that. I am a Dallas Goedert fan. I want to keep him here in Philadelphia. And the way I view it is this. I understand his age. He's getting up there. He gets banged up a lot. I understand why they're at a weird spot with Dallas Goedert. But if I think back to when they moved on from Zach Ertz, or when they had drafted Ertz to replace Brent Selleck. Those guys were still here, right? There was that transition phase where they had the old guy and they already drafted.
They got the young guy, the young Thundercat to teach him.
It feels like this is not the same because we don't have, and I know some people like Calcaterra, but it doesn't feel like they have that guy. So
and Grant worked hard.
He did.
Yeah, I wasn't going to even attempt that one, Kyle.
That's all right. It's Monday.
I wasn't about to attempt that one on a Monday.
If they had drafted a tight end last year, right, and that guy was ready to start, then I'd be like, okay, now it's time to move on from Dallas Goedert. They didn't do that yet. They might have to draft one this year. I'm looking at a team trying to repeat. We're talking about a guy that has been one of their better big game players over the years at big games. If they're getting a third-round pick back, a second, of course, then you say that's a good value. Fourth, fifth-round pick for Dallas Goedert, I want to keep him. Hugh, where do you come down on the Goedert thing? Because it feels like that's the next big name that could come to a head here. Are you okay moving on for, fourth, fifth-round pick?
Let me say this, and I'm a long talk just a little bit. Because Dallas, when he's healthy, he's one of the better tight ends in the game.
Yep.
But like I've said before, your biggest asset is your availability. And a lot of times that hasn't been the case. I think he played all the 8 games this year or something like that.
He was in and out. He had two different injuries.
Yeah, he had a couple different injuries, man. And I like him a lot, but you need that consistency for your quarterback. And we saw when he was out there, Jalen looked a lot better. And Grant was pretty decent. But if I can get something for it and for him and get somebody with a little bit more durability in this draft that's coming up, I think this is a pretty good class for tight ends as well, too. When you look at that, I would probably move on from him and get another guy.
So Goddard's cap number for this year is $12 million. It's pretty high. I mean, it's up there near Slay, who they just got rid of a week ago. So I'm not shocked that we're at this point and they might move on. I want to keep him or get something good back. To me, where this team is right now, a mid-round pick is not moving the needle. Just keep Dallas Goedert. Find a way. I mean, we always say this when Howie does something. Well, he can move numbers around. Well, I want this player back, so move the numbers around, Howie. 215-592-9494. Then driving in today, I heard this from Reuben Frank talking about Goedert, and it kind of really cemented the impact he's had in the postseason. We all can think of the big moments he's had, but he's been a really good playoff performer ever since he got here.
Oh, I would say it's probably not all that likely. We'll see what happens, and look, it's all part. He's 30. He's been hurt so much. You saw what he could do in the postseason. He's such a big time player, so it's a tough call. And, they've always had, when Selleck retired, they had Ertz. When Ertz got traded, they had Goddard. They don't have that heir apparent, which makes it a little trickier. Certainly not Grant Calcaterra is an okay backup, but you don't want to make him the starter. So, it's a tricky situation. It's a good tight end draft, but you never know if those guys are going to pan out.
Well, Hugh, you said it, and Rube said it there. It is a good tight end draft, but One, we don't know if they're going to pan out, and two, we don't know how the board's going to fall. Like, they may have someone circled that, like, oh, we would take him at the bottom of the second round, right? Well, what if he goes in the middle of the second round, and then you're kind of caught with your pants down, and you don't have a tight end for now or the future? It feels like he's good enough to keep, Hugh. It's an odd cut. Like, Slay is older. Slay's 34. They have 2 young corners they just drafted. That one made sense to me from the moment it happened. This one, it doesn't make as much sense to me.
Well, it's one of those things because the Eagles have done a really good job over the years of having somebody groom the young guy. But just like you said, Calcaterra is a guy who's played more probably this year. He's been more consistent than Dallas Goedert has. And the way that I look at it, haven't had a chance to watch too much college football this year, but the years that I did get a chance to watch a couple years ago, a lot of the tight ends that are playing in these schemes now are easier to integrate into professional pro schemes because they're a lot bigger. There are guys that play tight end now that they just had growth spurt. They got receiver skills.
Yep.
But they got growth spurts, and they got bigger. The first one I think about is the tight end that plays for the Raiders,
Brock
Bowers. Laporta is another guy. Like, these guys right now, man, they are the big difference makers in the NFL when you talk about for their respective teams. Even though Brock Bowers plays for the Raiders, it's a damn good tight end, man. And if you get one of those guys, one of those bigger guys that already creates a matchup problem for you and is durable, I think you got something there. And I think there's a couple guys in this draft that if you play this right, they might fall to you.
So, Hugh, I agree with you. There's 2 that I've seen in every mock in the first round. The Tyler Warren from Penn State, who looks like a star.
And then it was one tight end from LSU.
One from LSU and Loveland from Michigan. So there's some good ones.
Yeah.
But, all right, let's just play that out for a second. If they think one of these
Mason Taylor.
Okay, they think one of these kids is worthy of a first-round pick. Well, that means we're not using our first-round pick on Milton Williams' replacement at defensive tackle. We're not using our first-round pick on an edge rusher to replace Josh Sweat. I mean, every hole we create, we got to fill it somehow. I want to keep Goddard. If the rumors out there, Elliot, started on Friday and started really weeks before, that Goddard could be out of here and they're only going to get a 4th or a 5th-round pick, I'd rather just keep him. 215-592-9494. Would you trade Dallas Goedert? Would you be okay trading Dallas Goedert for a 4th or a 5th-round pick? I'm not. Hugh is. Where do you come down on this as legal tampering begins today? A lot going on in the NFL. We start with the Goddard thing, which feels like it's coming to a head. Kyle, what are you feeling here as the Eagles feels like are kind of greasing the skids for the Goddard exit?
Yeah, and I feel like we've been braced for this for quite a while now.
Yep.
Like, during the season, I think a lot of the consensus was this was probably going to be Goddard's last year. We'll get another tight end, especially when he was hurt. We're like, all right, we might need a new tight end. I just think back to when Goddard really came up. We drafted him in 2018. Zach Ertz was here. We kept Zach Ertz for, a couple more years after we had Goddard because he didn't leave till, I think, after 2020.
Was it the trade deadline in 21?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, because I remember it was all weird with Zach coming back into camp. It felt like that was coming to an end. But when we let Zach Ertz go, we had Goddard here. Goddard was the heir apparent. He was a 2nd-round pick, and we were like, this guy's going to be ready to come up. He'll be good, and he's ready to take on the full-time starter role. We don't have that guy right now. I don't trust Grant Calcaterra as a starter. I think Rube laid it out nicely there. He's fine as a backup, but he's not a guy that I'm ready to hand the keys over to. The guy can't block a nosebleed in pass pro. I don't think he's a good run blocker either. So it would feel a lot more palatable for me if we had a guy that was here. I get that the draft is coming up, but I don't know how good this kid coming out of the draft is going to be if we do get one, whether it's Tyler Warren or whatever. We're not even going to know if they're going to be ready or good in the NFL yet. With Goddard, we knew he was going to be ready. We don't have that right now. So why would I toss him for a mid-round pick, a 3rd or a 4th, when I can just keep Goddard? I mean, the offense is clearly different when he's in. Granted, that's not often or a lot, but when he's in, it's a completely new element to the offense that we don't have otherwise. And I think at this point, I'd rather just keep him here.
Yeah, and then when it comes to the blocking thing, I mean, he's a good run blocker too. And the Eagles last year were the most run-heavy team in the league. I mean, and they just re-signed Saquon. We're going to carry his press conference today. If they're going to run the football a lot next year, Goddard's really good at that. 215-592-9494. Dallas Goedert's been here a long time. As Kyle just said, drafted in 2018. This is one of the longest tenured Eagles. It feels like we're coming to a head on this where he could be let go. And if the price is only a 4th or 5th round pick, I'd rather just keep him. He's a good football player. He's been a champion. He's been on 2 Super Bowl teams. He's really good in the playoffs, which matters a ton with a team that's in the playoffs basically every year. And I understand the idea of going, into the draft, but you start making an extra thing to fill. Like, how many things can they draft you? If Milton leaves and Sweat leaves and Becton leaves and Goddard leaves, we only have 1 first-round pick, right? You gotta have to pick what you use the 1st and 2nd round pick for.
Joe's.
Yeah.
And I feel pretty good about it though, because Cooper DeJean was in later pick. I feel like this is the era where young guys are making more of a contribution in the NFL now, and I'm not as afraid as it once was. Remember back in the day when you would draft a quarterback and he would sit for a couple years. Steve McNair did that. They would sit for a couple years. You would draft a corner and you would throw him out there on certain situations, nickel situations, just let him play. No, you throw these guys to the fire, especially when you have a good coaching staff like the one that we have. I'm not as worried about it as I once was, because I feel like the coaches that they have, they're good job of being, they do a great job of teaching, and they also do a great job so far of integrating young talent into what they need them to do and teaching them so that they don't go out there and make a whole lot of mistakes.
Yeah, and I think they could draft someone and that guy could have an impact, sure. But let's just use the example that came up, both Ruben and Hugh brought up. Like, this has some good tight ends this draft, right? But let's say one slips to the 32nd pick. That great. Maybe we take a first-round tight end. Maybe he's the next tight end in here for 7 or 8 or 10 years. But that means we're not drafting a defensive lineman with the 32nd pick. Like, every time we've brought up Milton Williams or Josh Sweat, the response always is, well, they're probably going to draft their replacement in the first round. Hugh, we take a tight end in the first round. We're not drafting Milton's replacement.
I don't know if that would be a first-round pick. I don't know what the Eagles are thinking as far as what their priorities are. They're pretty stacked, so if they did take a tight end in the first round, I'm okay with that, because there are defensive linemen out there that will fall to the second round. And not only that, the Gravediggers out there, he going to need a job. Javon Hargrave, he might come back.
He could come back.
There are options out there. I understand what you're saying as far as you don't want to change too much, especially on a team that just won the Super Bowl. But, Joe, a lot of this is inevitable, and a lot of times going into the season, and just to give you a little thought from what I was told, you always go into the next year trying to improve in some area.
Sure.
Whether that be, get a younger person at that area or get something that's a little bit more consistent. And as well as Dallas Goedert has played in the postseason, he's been hurt a lot.
He has. I understand that part. I understand why they're not committing to him and not giving like a 4-year deal. He's getting older. But the way I view all these moves they make is it worth the cost? And then what can they get back? And do they have a replacement?
The biggest thing. And see, that's the biggest thing, because every move that I think that the Eagles need to make or should make, it has to be cost effective in one way or another. We just found out, we were talking about in the meeting, how that move that they made for Saquon Barkley didn't move the meter at all.
It didn't save them money.
It didn't save them any money. They just did that as a friendly gesture to show him that we appreciate you. But the bottom line is this: if I get an opportunity to upgrade at a position that hasn't been inconsistent for me, then why not? Because that's what we're talking about. Let's take away his name, Miles. I was about to say Myles Garrett. He's still on the brain. Dallas Goedert. Take his name out of it and say, okay, when I look at this offense, what position do I need to be a little bit more consistent at?
Tight end.
That's it.
That's one of them.
That's kind of how you look at it. You want to be more consistent, because even though Grant Calcaterra came in and he played well, Kyle pointed out this morning that there was a fall-off. There's a tremendous fall-off, especially when you talk about the run asset, being in the run game. So if I can go out and get somebody that's a little bit younger, a little bit cheaper, and a little more consistent, that's I've won at that position. Even though I might have created a position where it might not be filled by somebody as competent as a Dallas Goedert,
right.
I feel strong enough in my coaching staff that they can teach him and get him up to speed so that he's not there making a whole bunch of MEs, mental errors.
Yeah.
And can be a pretty good cog in this offense for them.
Yeah, and look, every team has to go cheap at some positions, and the Eagles might decide to go cheap at tight end. I mean, that might be just the way they go to fit everything in when you have an expensive running back and 2 expensive receivers, and they're going to pay the center. They might pay the right guard. I understand that. I just like when a team moves on from someone. Like I was okay with the Slay decision because they were prepared. They had just drafted 2 corners last year. They're prepared to move on from Darius Slay. I don't feel like they're really as prepared to move on from Dallas Goedert. And again, if the reporting out there was someone's willing to offer a third for him, then all right, that's pretty good value. You can get a good play. You can get a starter in the 3rd round. But when I'm seeing things like they hope to get a 4th, that tells me they might get a 5th. I just want to make the money work and hold on to the guy for one more year. 215-592-9494. Where do you come down? Would you be okay with the Eagles trading Dallas Goedert for a mid to late round pick? I'm not. If they can only get a late 4th or a 5th back, I'm holding on to him. Hughes okay moving on. Where do you come down as legal tampering starts today? There's a lot of stuff happening around the NFL already between Myles Garrett staying with the Cleveland Browns, trades, quarterbacks moving, a lot going on.